Now I want to talk about what are the best types of exercise for depression. And to cut to the chase, pretty much there's data showing that almost any activity can be helpful for depressive symptoms, but I want to break it down a little bit further here, kind of tease out what I saw in the literature. The most recent meta-analysis that I looked at showed that, things like dance had really large reductions in depressive symptoms. Also, things like walking, jogging, yoga, strength training, and mixed aerobic exercise, Tai Chi, all had moderate reductions. So in this big meta-analysis, which is a study looking at, putting together all these different studies, it seemed like dance had the largest reduction in depressive symptoms, followed by those other ones I talked about, like walking, jogging, strength training, things like that. And that being said, across multiple studies that I looked at, there's lots of reviews on this. The most consistent data seems to be that aerobic exercise of moderate intensity and group exercise seem to be the most beneficial for depressive symptoms. And they also talk about combined exercise, meaning resistance training and aerobic training. And it was beneficial, but it doesn't seem to be as beneficial as a single modality. Honestly, I'm not quite sure why that showed up. My guess is that there's not nearly as many studies looking at combined exercise training as opposed to like one single modality. And so there's probably a smaller number of studies looking at the combined. So that's why you can't, quite figure out the signal from the noise there. But overall, there's lots of ways to do it. And on top of that, it seemed that the more vigorous activity, the more improvements we saw in symptoms. So that's one thing. And then from specific like demographics, some data showed that resistance training may be particularly beneficial for younger women, whereas yoga may be more beneficial for older men, which is kind of funny. If you think about who participates in yoga versus resistance training, usually it's like, okay, we think about men with resistance training and females yoga, but the opposite was kind of shown, meaning, hey, when we had younger women do resistance training, they seem to benefit from that. And whereas men were beneficial from yoga, that's not the only thing. It's not saying, hey, they only benefited from this. They benefited from all the things, but they kind of did subgroup analysis saying, hey, the older men who did yoga seem to have more benefit. And I have no idea why. Once again, the mechanisms we're not going to be able to figure that out because it's just kind of, looking at observations and whatnot there. But I think it's kind of cool. I think there's something to like empowerment or doing something that's not normal, right? A lot of times, fortunately, it's getting much more common now. And I'm a huge fan of that is, younger women can sometimes be intimidated to go lift. And when they do that, it's a feeling of accomplishment and they feel good. Maybe that has something to do with it. Whereas men, yoga is not something they typically do. And then they do that and realize, I feel really good after this. So maybe it's just getting out of your comfort zone. And I don't know, I really like that, but I think it's kind of cool. So if I had to recap though, overall exercise, pretty much whatever you want is fine. If you want to get out and move, the biggest thing is just moving and doing it, right? So dance, we can do running, jogging, yoga, strength training, mixed aerobic exercise, Tai Chi, pretty much like pick your poison, we can do it. And if you want to get the bigger benefit from it, doing it more vigorously, that would be beneficial as well. And so that's the type of exercise that people may do to improve their depressive symptoms.